Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Specifically going to be focused on the talent changes that Blizzard is going to make. They have given us a preview of what they're going to be doing with talents, and I think the talent system changes are probably going to be the highlight of the Dragonflight expansion. No more borrowed power, no more abilities that we only have for one expansion that get removed for the next. No, what we get from the start is going to stay with us, and that I feel is a really good thing. So from Blizzard, from Battle.net, from WorldofWarcraft.com, World of Warcraft Dragonflight talent preview. So it seems that they focused on the Druid. Makes sense because the Druid does have multiple specs, so it does seem like a good starting point, like has a lot of specs. So Dragonflight contains major updates to World of Warcraft classes, centering on the reintroduction of talent trees. In this preview, we take a first look at the prototype trees for the Druid and Death Knight classes. These and all other trees will have still have a lot of work to be done, but we want to share what we can to start collecting detailed feedback at this early stage. Some of our biggest goals in a class and talent revamp are to increase player agency over your character progression and build, provide meaningful rewards while leveling, and reinforce your character's connection to both their class and their spec. In addition, we felt we had to retain many features of modern World of Warcraft specialization. Specializations have many unique abilities, some of which might be central to the identity of the spec. They have a wide variety of optional bonuses that have been created at various times over the years, like, the artifact powers in Legion and BFA, the Covenant system in Shadowlands. This all led us back to talent trees, a concept familiar to people who played WoW before the Mists Pandaria expansion. Visually, trees are still an intuitive way to represent different paths one could follow while making many choices about the character. Trees also communicate dependencies and magnitude intuitively without a lot of added rules. For example, talents higher in the tree are expected to be more commonly chosen, while talents lower in the tree are more optional and more geared towards shaping max level builds. Dragonflight talent trees have some significant differences from previous versions of talent trees in WoW. First, you have not one tree, but two. This is due to combine important class-wide and specialization-specific themes for current WoW characters. The class tree contains a core set of abilities available to all specs in a class and has a higher proportion of utility choices. It's a place where you can, among other things, choose some abilities or passives that draw from the identity of other specializations to give your character some hybrid flavor, or to simply grab something particularly useful for certain content. The specialization tree, on the other hand, is predominantly focused on bonuses that enhance your power in your main role. Keeping these separate is one way of ensuring that you have some choice is in both areas without, for example, feeling compelled to give up all your utility or off-spec buttons in order to maximize your main role performance. Another fundamental change is that much more of your class is represented in the tree instead of being rewarded automatically while leveling up. Other than starting abilities you obtain before you access the system at level 10, the vast majority of abilities are obtained via the tree. This gives rise to some of the most important questions and challenges of a new system. Well, just reading that statement, as I read it before on MMO Champion, just reading that statement makes me wonder about the following thing. Is this just going to be Blizzard putting a lot of stuff in the talent trees that we already have? Or are we going to get new and exciting abilities? That's the question I have. Because if it's just Blizzard taking away a lot of abilities and just to put them in the talent trees, is that really going to be interesting? Or are we going to end up with less abilities? Anyway, here's just some answers to some questions and answers that we know you might be wondering about. Some abilities are critical to my rotation. Well, I always have to build a certain way? No. The most basic building blocks of your rotation will tend to either be learned from levels 110, awarded automatically in the class tree, or placed at the top of your spec tree as a first point spent in that tree. In other cases, major abilities that we expect to be part of most builds will be near the start of a tree or an easily accessible path so they don't constrain your other choices. A certain piece of utility is important in certain content, like Interrupts and Mythic Plus. Does this limit my choices? This most likely is something is to be all but required for some players. The more we must place it in the tree in an appropriate location, one that still leaves the rest of your build choices very open. Does that mean it's possible to make very bad builds, like fail? Yes, it is. There are limits and guardrails here, but such as those abilities that are automatically given, and furthermore, a goal is designing your trees not to trap players in complicated choices in order to make a functional build. In fact, it's opposite. It's to set up trees with intuitive paths that lead you to reasonable builds. But key philosophy of this rework is to keep the player in driver's seat of their character growth within their class. Okay, so you can screw up, basically. That's what they're saying in a gentle way, but that's what they're saying. Does that mean some of my points are spent on somewhat obvious choices that are unlikely to be moved? Often, yes. 60.1 points is drastically more than 7 that players currently have in channel lines. It would probably be a mistake if all 61 points were always heavily in play. This is how we maintain the balance alluded to above, where it's not overwhelming to make and analyze builds. The tree contains a spectrum of more basic abilities all the way to comparatively advanced ones, and one of those advantages of the systems is letting you draw that line. Doesn't all mean I will use some of my points to buy some things that were baseline in channel lines. For all the reasons mentioned above, they're basically saying yes, right? We hear this feedback as a primary concern about having much less stuff than you had in Shadowlands, but after starting your basic build and spending 61 points in the tree, will you feel pruned? Openly, our goal is that you don't. We'll be watching feedback on this. Our goal is for a Dragonflight character to feel like it has a similar amount of power and complexity, which can be hard to quantify, as a Shadowlands character. The main difference is you getting to choose which active buttons and passive bonuses make up that tool set, and potentially having combinations that were previously impossible. So it can both be good and bad, I guess. It depends on how they're doing it. So the broad categories: abilities learned before level 10, the most basic elements of what starts to make you into a class, like Moonfire, Deathstrike. Buttons whose primary impact is primarily on combat, non-power related: Teleport, Path Pros, Revive. Non-stacking group buffs or spell, where a group virtually always wants exactly one person with ability: Raise Ally, Rebirth, Mark of the Wild. There are a lot of case-by-case calls to be made around all of this, but by and large we are pushing ourselves to leave it to players to explore in the trees how to build out their class from level 10 to 70. The experience of using the tree will be more intuitive when you play with the system in game. Yeah, we want to see it. Okay, but we want to provide some explanation here for those who want to analyze the current draft trees in detail. Please bear in mind, these are all subject to changes as we continue development. So your first class tree point is awarded at 10, your first specialization point at 11. Alternating between the two from there. At level 70, you'll have 31 class points, 30 specialization points. Certain basic abilities in the class tree are given automatically to people of particular specializations. These do not cost any points. Most talents have prerequisites. These will be indicated by arrows in the final UI. If a talent has any arrows leading into it, you must have fully purchased at least one of the previous talents to access it. For clarity, arrows always point downwards or diagonally, okay. Every tree has certain rows that you can't advance past until you've spent a number of talent points, unlike in pre-missed Mederic trees. This is not the case for every row. In the prototype Druid and Death Knight trees, you cannot buy talents in the 5th row and beyond until you've spent 8 points in a tree. Okay. So, let's take a look at the Druid talent and abilities. Ooh, this is interesting and quite large. So this is the Balanced Druid, for instance, the Feral Druid. Okay, so you have Balanced Druid, Feral Druid, Guardian Druid, and Resto Druid. I mean, it would be great. Like they go over all of the abilities that you can get. You know what? I'm just gonna say it out loud. It would have been so much better if Blizzard had actually, given us the ability to just play around with this. But these are the talents available, the trees as they currently are. So Druid tree, so that's the Druid tree on the left. This is the Druid tree, the basic Druid tree. And then you have your Guardian tree, your Resto tree. Okay, so there's going to be a lot more baseline abilities. But okay, so we see Is that Innervate? Okay, so that's Innervate. We got Cyclone over there. Okay, that does seem to be pretty deep in, by the way. Like to get Innervate, which, you know, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think I would qualify Innervate as being a mandatory ability for pretty much everyone to have. Right. Like Innervate, all that kind of stuff, being in there. But it does seem, okay, and then let's look at the DK. Just gonna go over a bit, just a glance at it. Okay, so we have the DK tree, then we have the blood tree, just, you know, the tanking tree. Interesting. So you have quite a few things available. So you need to spend 20 points to unlock all of these. You have 3 points, 1 point. Okay. It would be a lot better, I'm not gonna lie, if, you know, they would have given us the ability to just play around with these, right? Just see what we can, just see how points work right now and how that's going to work, as opposed to just having constant lists. But yeah, like my view on this, I'm just gonna give my genuine view after I've looked in this. Here's how I think about it. I think it is a good decision what they're doing with the customization of your character, as opposed to like just having only a couple of points and really not even having that many choices to begin with when it comes to your talent trees, right? Can really feel right now on retail that you're pigeonholed down a particular tree. It certainly feels that way with Covenant trees as well. Like there's one that's just better than anyone else. There's just some talents that are better in these situations. And like, for instance, I don't think I've changed my talent trees on retail Shadowlands all that often, if at all. I've stuck with what I started. You know, maybe Blessed Hammer as opposed to Holy Shield in some situations would have been warranted, but outside of that, I've never really felt much of a reason to change my talents. So if it's actual customization, if it's actual choices that you have to make, you can make, and you will be making, as opposed to just going with the talent tree that feels mandatory, if that's going to be the case, it's interesting. If it's just a case of like, oh, you get all this customization, but then you fall down a single path and you're not really going to deviate from that, then there's not really much point to it, is there? But I guess we'll see how it plays out. I think that Blizzard does certainly have issues with this. Now, people have mentioned that, oh, the balance is going to be broken. I think that it's true. There are certainly going to be some balance issues at the end of the day, but at the same time, I do think that there's kind of like an obsessive focus from some people with regards to the balance, and I don't think it matters necessarily in every situation. I don't think balance should be more important, like having a fun system, having a fun game, having interesting gameplay. It's not really that important. It shouldn't be that important. The problem is, it is. That's kind of the issue, though. It's like, we can say that, but it actually is a problem. The reason it's a problem, a lot of people care about this. Like, when Shadowlands launched, I found it very difficult as Prop Paladin to find a group. The reason behind that is, for Mythic Plus, you had Demon Hunter meta. Like, Demon Hunter was way better than any other tank. Are we going to have a repeat of that situation in the expansion? That's my concern with Dragonflight, with the system and what they're doing here. That it's going to end up being like that. And so I would really hope that doesn't end up happening, but I do feel like it likely is going to end up happening exactly like that, which would not be a great situation. And on top of that, though, I gotta say, just 2 cents on my opinion on Dragonflight. The Dragonflying feels like a gimmick. The new continent, story, whatever, we don't care. The talent system is nice. Revamping the base UI, okay, you should have done it years ago, but okay. That's good, though we're still going to be using a lot of add-ons. That's not going to change, and I think Blizzard knows that's not going to change, but I do appreciate the fact that they are revamping the default UI. However, when I look at Dragonflight, I'm just asking myself this question. For all the good with like the talent system changes, and And for all the gimmicks, right, you know, Dragonflight going to be a gimmick that they're probably going to use to use self-store mounts and all that kind of stuff. For all that, though, I asked myself this question. Are Blizzard going to do anything whatsoever to deal with the problems that the community has? Because the problem with WoW right now isn't a gameplay issue. It's not a content issue. You know, bosses, for all the crap storyline that exists in Shadowlands, bosses, the actual gameplay can be a great deal of fun. The issue, however, is that the community aspect is so broken. And as long as Blizzard doesn't do anything to deal with that community aspect, to improve the community, to get people to socialize, work together, etc., as long as Blizzard doesn't fix that, doesn't try at least to really deal with the current status quo, it doesn't matter what they do in terms of gameplay and content and all that, because what you're going to end up with is just a repeat of Shadowlands. You're going to have a lot of people jumping in, trying it out, seeing that it's not going to be that great, and then quitting. If you don't have a community hook, if you don't have a hook to keep people in, then people are just going to jump ship at the very early opportunity. And that is a problem in WoW, a major problem in WoW in this day and age. You may disagree with me on that, but that's what I think about it. So all these talent changes, gameplay changes, all that they're talking about, it's good, but it's like you're kind of missing the big picture here, Blizzard. You're kind of missing the elephant in the room that you need to deal with. And are they going to deal with it? Are they going to do anything about it? I don't know that they will. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications, and I will see you next time.